Week 10 of the fantasy football season. Here's a few tight ends I looked at off the wire this week. The first tight end, Mike Gesicki of the Cincinnati Bengals. I said in last week's video, Gesicki puts up numbers when T. Higgins isn't in the lineup, and he's pretty much like the number 2 option in the passing game when Higgins is out. So coming off another monster performance is Mike Gesicki. He's definitely someone to go out there and get off the waiver wire. Available right now in tons of leagues at 87%. So the last 2 weeks, with Higgins out, Week 8 versus the Eagles, 7 catches, 73 yards, a fumble loss, 8 targets. And Week 9, a monster game, 5 catches, 100 yards, and 2 touchdowns on 6 targets. And then going back to early in the year, another game where Higgins was out, Week 2 with Kansas City, 7 catches, 91 yards, 9 targets. So he's a big target, obviously, when T. Higgins isn't in the lineup for the Cincinnati Bengal team. And this week, it's going to be a shootout on Thursday night, I believe, at the Baltimore Ravens. 2 division rivals, know each other well. And Mike Gesicki's going out there making plays, and he's had a lot of potential for seasons, but he's just bounced around the last couple seasons and maybe found a home now with the Cincinnati Bengal team. Next tight end, Taysom Hill of the New Orleans Saints. Taysom Hill returned to the lineup, and he played a lot of gadget in that ball game in Week 9 and the bad loss at the Carolina Panthers. So Taysom Hill, it's hit or miss weekly for him. 1 week he'll have 6 points, and the next week, like this week, he had 16 fantasy points. So Week 8, in his return to the line, pass yards, 4 carries, 20 yards, 2 catches, 21 yards. And then Week 9, the big game at Carolina, 5 carries, 19 yards, a touchdown on the ground, and 4 catches, 41 yards. Obviously, he plays all over the formation. He can catch the football, throw the football, run the football. Is Taysom Hill. But obviously, the thing is, if he's not getting a touchdown, the numbers really haven't been there for Taysom Hill. So right now, while he's out there still in a decent amount of fantasy leagues, in 63% of leagues, he's definitely a tight end to head off the wire. But like I said, it's tough to trust him week in and week out. But this week, a good matchup versus the Atlanta Falcons. Next tight end, Hunter Henry of the New England Patriots. Surprisingly, back to the lineup after getting concussed last week was Drake May, and him and Hunter Henry are locked in. They have a great rapport. Hunter Henry out there in tons of leagues at 64%. And Henry in the games we've seen Drake May this season complete all the games. Week 6 versus Houston, 3 catches, 41 yards, a touchdown. Week 7 at Jacksonville, 8 catches, 92 yards. Week 8, before he went out with injury, was May. He had 5 catches, 45 yards. And then Week 9, like I said, 7 catches, 56 yards. So Drake May, Hunter Henry, they're locked in. We know a young quarterback's best friend and security blanket is a tight end position. And Hunter Henry, in my opinion, is the number 1 option in this passing game for New England. So after 3 out of 4 games with double-digit fantasy points, it's very surprising he's still out there in 64% of fantasy leagues. Next tight end is Theo Johnson of the New York Giants. So Theo Johnson, he's definitely showed some flashes over the last couple weeks here. And this New York Giant team, they got a young nucleus. If they had a better quarterback than Daniel Jones, this offense really could be lethal, in my opinion. Week 8 at Pittsburgh, 3 catches, 35 yards. And Week 9 versus the Commanders, 3 catches, 51 yards, and a touchdown. So Week 10, a cupcake matchup at the Carolina Panthers. Give up the second most fantasy points to tight ends on the season. And Theo Johnson, he's running more routes over the last few weeks. And he's a young rookie that's going to start getting more opportunities, as this Giant team is obviously out of it and done this season, 2-7 on the year. So like I said, a good matchup coming up at Carolina. And if you need a tight end in deeper leagues, Theo Johnson is an ad this week. And the final tight end that looked it off the wire this week, staying in the same games, Tavion Sanders of the Carolina Panthers. So 2 out of the last 3 weeks, double-digit fantasy points for Sanders. And Tommy Trimble's not really an option in this offense. We know this Panther team's done as well, 2-7 on the season, with a decent matchup versus the New York Giants. So Week 7 at the Commanders, 6 catches, 61 yards. Week 8 at Denver, he didn't do anything, a catch, 7 yards. And Week 9 versus Saints, a nice ball game in the upset victory, 4 catches, 87 yards to Sanders. He was a nice prospect coming out of college. And with Deontay Johnson gone and traded away to Baltimore, more targets obviously opened up over there in Carolina for someone to step up and take those targets and make plays. So Sanders right now as well, like Johnson, available in 99% of fantasy leagues. So that's a few tight ends I looked at off the wire for Week 10 of the fantasy football season.